You don't expect Marjorie Taylor Green to show up in a lot of Democratic ads.
It just projects wisdom, strength, experience.
Welcome to Political Experts React, where we break down political ads and media, explain what the people behind them are trying to accomplish, and decide whether or not they did a good job. I'm Dan Pfeiffer, former communications director for Barack Obama, and joining me today is former White House communications director and co-host and producer for Showtime's The Circus, Jennifer Palmieri. Jennifer Palmieri, my old friend, welcome to my ridiculous YouTube show, Political Experts React. How are you?
I'm good. I listened to you and Favreau last week, and Favreau told me that this show was excellent.
He's a huge fan. He's a huge fan for the show put on by the company he owns. Yes, he's an unbiased source. Yes. We are recording this in the middle of September, which is also known as Democratic panic time.
Totally.
A series of polls have come out. They have all shown a very, very close race. They've shown some concerns, if you will, with the president's age, the economy, etc. So I thought we'd have you on. You're an expert of many presidential campaigns, and we wanted to look at some of the ads that the Biden campaign is running to see what we think of them and what we think it tells us about their strategy.
Joe Biden had the largest public investment in social infrastructure and environmental programs that is actually finishing what FDR started, that LBJ expanded on, and Joe Biden is attempting to complete. Programs to address education, medical care, urban problems, rural poverty, transportation, Medicare, Medicaid, labor unions. And he still is working on it.
Now, you don't expect Marjorie Taylor Green to show up in a lot of Democratic ads. What do you think of the case she made for Joe Biden, and why do you think he ran that ad?
I've seen her do this in real life, because I spent a week for the Circus in her district. That is part of her stump. I think people might watch that and think, oh, the Biden campaign cobbled that together. But no, that is what she actually says. And the first time I heard it, I was waiting for it to turn, and it doesn't actually turn. They edited it a little bit, but that is basically what she says. But she's just so wrapped around the MAGA axle that she thinks it's bad. I felt like this during the Clinton campaign, the Hillary Clinton campaign, and for Biden too. The hardest thing is to break through. And so I felt like this was good because it's unexpected, it's clever, and it makes you think about oh, right, he is finishing what FDR started. But I also know ads that make you think might not be so great. When we worked together, I was always the more optimistic one, and you were the one that would come in hard with reality.
Yeah, that's not saying a ton, but yes, that is true, yes.
Is this ad asking too much of people? What do you think about it?
No, I think it's great. What is smart about it is, to your point, the hardest thing, and it is particularly hard for Joe Biden for a whole host of reasons that involve the way he does media, his sort of theory of the presidency, the way the press treats Joe Biden. He's not exactly a driver of rage clicks and ratings like Donald Trump was. It's very hard for him to break through. And this ad got tens of millions of views online, free. They didn't pay for any of those in the first 24, 48 hours. As you know from having managed digital staff before, they're judged on how much traffic does the stuff get. And so you lean towards virality for virality's sake. And here's an ad that goes viral, is completely on their message in two ways. One, it's just a recitation of their accomplishments, which these polls we referred to earlier, no one knows, literally no one knows.
Nobody knows. Yeah.
And it also has a Republican doing it. And, if you were to just put this thing on TV, you'd have to put Marjorie Taylor Green, Republican, on there. Most normal voters are not going to recognize her face or her voice, but it did something which is it made people listen to Joe Biden's accomplishments, something that has been very hard for them to get done through, honestly, no fault of their own. I thought it was great and useful and served a very specific purpose.
He has done a lot to solve problems. And if you can be smart enough about how you're communicating those accomplishments, there's a lot of ground that you can make up with people who voted for Biden in 20, thus far aren't excited for 24.
Are people feeling worse about Joe Biden because they feel worse about the economy? Or are they feeling worse about the economy because they feel worse about Joe Biden? Because some of this is driven by Democrats. If you compare this CNN poll, which had people wanting someone other than Biden to run, those numbers are actually up since March. And is that because of the economy, even though the economy is much better than March? Either the politics of the economy have disconnected from the reality of the economy. Is there something that we're not seeing that other people are seeing? It's a huge question.
Nobody knows that Joe Biden doesn't actually control interest rates. But you're raising a larger, more existential question, because in March of 2023, that was after Joe Biden's good midterms. That was after the good State of the Union, and that was after the Kyiv trip. Also, March of 2023 was if somebody on the Democratic side was going to launch a serious primary challenge, that's when they would have needed to do it. That's when Biden was like at like a real high, and now he's lower. But it's also very Democratic, hand wringing to like not like the guy once it's too late to do anything about it.
That would be correct. Speaking of his economic numbers, let's look at this next ad that his campaign has put up addressing the economic question.
They said millions would lose their jobs and the economy would collapse. But this president refused to let that happen. Instead, he got to work, fixing supply chains, fighting corporate greed, passing laws to lower the cost of medicine, cut utility bills, and make us more energy independent. Today, inflation is down to 3%, unemployment the lowest in decades. There's more to do, but President Biden is getting results that matter.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
Do you think this ad solves all of his problems?
No, I hate this ad.
Oh, really?
I do. Don't you hate this ad? This is like the kind of ad that's like trying to do too many things. They're trying to tell you that unemployment is low, that inflation is low, that it could have been worse, but it's not, that there's lower prescription drug coverage. Pick two of those arguments. And also, it just is like the same old kind of visuals. This is the kind of thing that I'm sure tested well, but like I don't trust old-fashioned ad testing.
This ad definitely has some of the makings of a focus group ad because the term supply chain keeps showing up in everything. And I've seen polling which shows people like fixing the supply chain. I just don't know that people really know what that means. Like one of the things I try to do with these ads is recognize that everyone watches them and says it looks like a typical political ad. And everyone's been saying that for 25 years, but no one has ever come up with an ad that doesn't look like a typical political ad. And I never can come up with it. I'm always like, ugh. This thing sucks. Can we make it better? They're like, well, what would your idea be? And I'm like, different music? I don't know. So it's always like, it's hard. The thing that I find notable about this ad is the Biden people have clearly decided the press is never going to tell people about good economic news. So they're going to have to do it. If that does nothing more than make a few more Democrats say out loud the economy is good, that's probably a decent use of money at this point. But yeah, like none of these ads change the game, right? They're one tiny beat in a larger narrative they're going to have 14 months to sell.
This is a high-class problem. People don't understand that the economy is doing better and that we are responsible for it. It's all good to do, and it's good that they're doing it. I mean, it's still technically summer. They're doing it in the summer.
Even back in 2012, slightly different, actually quite different media environment where we still had the capacity to communicate organically, like Obama in September gave a nationally televised speech in front of Congress. In this media age, that is not a weapon in Joe Biden's arsenal. Basically, he's going to have to pay, right? The whole way. The only way to get people to know anything anymore is to pay to tell them it. And that's what he's going to have to do. All right, people. As you know, normally I come on here and ask you to smash the subscribe button on the Pod Save America YouTube channel. And you should do that if you haven't done it yet. But today I want to encourage you to join Friends of the Pod, which is Crooked Media's subscription service, which gives you access to ad-free episodes of Pod Save America, a lot of bonus content from John, Tommy, and the rest of the Crooked Media universe, as well as access to our Discord server, which is basically like Twitter, but with no Elon Musk and only people you like. So come join our community, subscribe to Friends of the Pod now at crooked.com/friends. The last ad we're going to watch is from, you guessed it, Joe Biden.
It was the first time in modern history
very significant moment on the world stage
that an American president went into a war zone not controlled by the United States.
A nearly 40-hour journey in and out of Ukraine.
President Biden left Washington, D.C. at 4 a.m. on Sunday. He landed in eastern Poland and then took a 9.5-hour train to Kyiv.
He entered Ukraine under the cover of night. And in the morning, Joe Biden walked shoulder to shoulder with our allies in the war-torn streets, standing up for democracy in a place where a tyrant is waging war to take it away.
Air raid sirens blared as the two men walked together.
In the middle of a war zone, Joe Biden showed the world what America is made of. That's the quiet strength of a true leader who doesn't back down to a dictator. Biden, president.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
Ukraine polls relatively low on people's concerns, and actually the politics of it, which were pretty good for a long time, have turned pretty quickly as people have begun to believe for the first time they think we're doing too much to help against the Russian invasion. What's your take on why they ran this ad?
It's ostensibly about foreign policy, but it does a ton of work in lots of areas. It like combats the age. It goes to experience. The Putin photo alone is like a good contrast with Trump, and it just projects wisdom, strength, experience. So I feel like it is super smart. I hate the narrator.
That narrator is going to do like 85% of the Biden ads this year. And he did like 85% of the Obama ads, did a bunch of Hillary ads.
I know, but like, isn't he the Morning in America guy?
It's morning again in America.
Like, why do we have an older man's voice on an ad that's about like strength and energy and leadership? But like, it's phenomenal. I'm so impressed with how much work it does.
It does all the things you say, and it understands, which I think we as Democrats miss a lot, which is more often than not, the axis of American politics is on strength. It's a mistake we make with Trump all the time when we're like, he is a dictator. He's going to take over the government. People are like, oh, he seems pretty strong, right? It's part of the reason why all of the indictment stuff helps him with the segment of the basics, because it makes him seem strong. The Biden folks pivoted hard against that in a very good way in 2020, and they very smartly used Joe Biden's personal story as a story of strength. What he has dealt with in his life, what he has bounced back from. It's like a graceful strength as opposed to sort of a crass strength, which is Trump's, and it worked well. And this is dignity and strength, and I think it's the right thing. And all these ads should have Joe Biden moving around, no still shots. The thing that I think we all have to remind ourselves is that, and because of the way the media environment works, and because, as I mentioned before, the way the media covers Joe Biden, most Americans have not seen Joe Biden speak in like 2 years.
You and Favreau were making this point the other day. It's so true. It's so true. They're like, where's Biden? They just don't see him. And like partly that the White House needs to put him out more. And they have like in recent days, like his 9/11 speech I thought was really good. Vietnam press conference was shaky, but you know what? We all know he's old and sometimes he's shaky.
No president, whether they are 80 or 47, like Barack Obama, has ever had a good press conference on the end of a 5-day foreign trip. It's never happened.
Oh my God, particularly in Asia. I remember some dudes.
Yes, yeah, you are exactly 12 hours off your time zone. I mean, it's
the worst.
On that optimistic note from my optimistic friend, Jennifer Palmieri, thank you so much for joining us on Political Reactions React.
My pleasure.
Everyone check her out on the Circus.
We'll be back in October.
Thanks for watching these ads and videos with us. If you have anything you'd like us to break down, let us know in the comments. See you all next time.